Michael, thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure, Aaron.
Well, I recently chatted to Angus Ross at Seven, and from feedback from listeners, they were actually intrigued about his pathway to the top programming spot at Seven. So on that note, can you tell me about your pathway, I guess, from high school to your position now at the ABC?
Aaron, I'm a certain age, so we could be here forever. I will try to keep it brief. So I went to high school in Parkes, New South Wales, and I did my HSC there. During year 11, I think it was, I did a week's work experience at the local radio station, 2PK, Voice of the Golden West. And I loved that experience so much that I figured that radio was the future for me. And so I spent the next 12 months doing my HSC and at the same time knocking on the door to the general manager of 2PK, Ken Birch. And eventually he gave me some part-time shifts after school. And anyway, that ended up being a full-time job once I finished high school, completed my HSC. And I did that DJing job for a number of years, but I was very young. I hadn't really seen the world. I spent most of my life in Parkes or earlier on in Campbelltown, New South Wales. And I got a bit anxious about being trapped in the studio for the rest of my life, you know, thinking that I could be 40 years old, still behind a panel. So that got me thinking that I needed to get out and about. So I actually did something incredibly different. I followed my brother into the Royal Australian Navy, and I did a standard kind of contract with the RAN and sailed the seven seas, became a communications sailor, really thoroughly enjoyed it. But I realized after about 4 years that there's always somebody in charge of you, somebody making decisions, somebody telling you what to do. And I'm not really that kind of person. So I figured life in the RAN was not going to be forever. So I tried to figure out what to do next. I thought I would go back to radio. In the meantime, I left the Navy. I met somebody who was working at Channel 10 in Sydney in the children's department, and they were looking for a runner, somebody to, you know, make coffee, do the photocopying, type up scripts, etc. Yeah. So I applied for that job with the head of children's at the time, Ian Fairweather, who was very, very famous in those days. And Ian gave me my first job in television, and I absolutely loved the experience at Channel 10. We were making shows like Ridgy Didge and Double Dare, which was a format from Nickelodeon in the US. We ended up making Family Double Dare.
I remember that, yeah.
Yes, good. It kind of impacted a lot of people, very successful shows. Unfortunately, the Channel 10 management side of things was in a bit of trouble, and they sold off their North Ryde studios and moved into central Sydney. I took that opportunity to go abroad. I figured I'd never really been outside Australia apart from one trip to Fiji. So I took advantage of my mother being British and being able to work in the UK. So I headed to the UK. Within 5 months or so, I got a job at the BBC in the BBC Children's Department. And kind of the world just took over then. I just loved what I was doing. I worked for the BBC for a number of years. The Discovery Channel opened up in the UK. I went off to work with them. They're a new cable and satellite channel, so that was a new experience. I went back to the BBC. During that period, we opened up 2 digital channels, CBeebies and CBBC. And then in the early 2000s, the internet exploded. And every major brand around the world thought that they could have their own channel and create branded channels. Yeah. And Lego was one of those companies. Lego, the toy company, the bricks, I think everybody listening will have some experience with a brick, whether they trod on it, sat on it, or somebody threw it at them. But Lego went into the film and TV business, and myself and a colleague set up the TV and film business for them. And we did a preschool series called Little Robots, which sold all around the world. We created a movie franchise called Bionicles. They went off and they licensed Batman and various other things to create games, and they were very, very successful. And I did that for about 4 years. when the BBC beckoned me back. And I went back to the BBC and looked after animation and programs that were produced outside of the BBC, essentially. Did that for a number of years. Then I went to, where did I go then? I went to Cartoon Network in Europe, and I ran Cartoon Network across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Did some incredible programs like The Amazing World of Gumball, which is a huge Emmy-winning, BAFTA-winning, Academy Award-winning television animation series.
Yeah.
Great experience there, because children's programs, it was a secret world for me, and I didn't let many people into it, because in children's television, you make drama, you make animation, you make game shows, you make factual shows, you make documentaries, you make all sorts of genres, types of shows. Whereas in the adult sphere, you had to specialize. You had to either be a factual maker or a game show maker or a news maker. So it was an incredible experience for me. And I worked in the Middle East and traveled around Europe, et cetera, et cetera. Then I was wooed to Hit Entertainment, and Hit Entertainment were the founders of Bob the Builder and Fireman Sam and Thomas the Tank Engine and Angelina Ballerina.
All the big ones.
And oh yes, massive, massive worldwide brands. And so I was put in charge of those brands, and my job was to refresh them. So I had to do the new adventures of Thomas the Tank Engine and recreate Bob the Builder and spend a lot of time with Fireman Sam. But the owners of Hit Entertainment were in the US. So I got to spend a lot of time in LA and worked with a whole range of really talented, creative people. Then through that experience, I became the CEO of Zodiac Kids Studios, which is owned by Banerjee in Europe, one of the biggest independent production companies there is. And we did some incredible things at Zodiac, like Mr. Maker, which is another kind of world famous craft show for children, and various other things. Anyway, during all of this, I kept coming across the ABC because obviously Australia is my homeland. I was very interested in what was going on in television and radio back in Australia. And I met a guy called Richard Finlayson, who happened to be the director of television. And he said that there was a job coming up as the head of children's at the ABC, and would I be interested? And I just jumped at the chance of coming home, 26 years abroad. And the chance to come home and spend time with my family. My parents were still in parks. My brother and sisters were still around and about. I had lots of nieces and nephews that I never really spent time with. So I came back 5 years ago and became the head of children's for a couple of years. And that was an incredible experience. The ABC Children's Department is world class. It's world renowned. They're making the best quality children's content. Just like the BBC and just like PBS in the States and just like CBC in Canada. So, that was an incredible experience. Then there was a little bit of disruption at the ABC and there was some moving chairs. The managing director of the time left the ABC, and my boss, David Anderson, who was the director of television by then, moved in to act as the new managing director. And he asked me if I would like to sit in his seat as the acting director of television. Well, during that transition, of course, I said yes, but we merged radio, television, and our online services so that we were no longer platform-centric. We became genre-centric. And so national radio, including RN, the music networks, and all of, most of television production were merged into what's now known as Entertainment and Specialist. And I'm the Director of Entertainment and Specialist. Well, I hope that didn't take too long.
No, it actually is a really interesting journey. Some people you talk to started a whole different career somewhere else, and then they moved into television. And some people, from high school, they thought that's what they wanted to do. I recently spoke to Tony Barber, of course, from Sound of the Century fame. His story was not that dissimilar to yours. A little bit of entertainment background near high school, but then he decided to go off to the Navy and then came back and then went into radio and then into television. So similar sort of journey, I guess.
Aaron, you're telling me I'm not the only one?
Yeah, off to the Navy and then off to into television. Look, I want to
Yeah.
talk ratings for a moment. Each and every day, Ozterm sends out the ratings performances of the commercial channels, but also for the ABC and SBS. ABC does not have paid advertising, so a
Hmm.
show's ratings and demographic performance is not necessarily a signal to continue or dump a show, is it? I mean, at 9 a.m. when the ratings come through, what is it that you're actually looking for in the daily reports?
It's not unusual for public service broadcasters to get ratings, and it's generally, a requirement so that we can see the balance between, what's on air, what's doing well, what's having wide appeal, what programs might be a bit more specialized and only appealing to a smaller audience, say a niche audience. But I guess at the end of the day, ratings are about indicating how audiences are reacting to something that you've created and that you've put into the schedule or onto a digital platform. So we look at it as a tool. It kind of forms a combination of our own instincts, all of the hard work and effort that we've gone into creating something specifically for audiences, whether they're children's audiences or adult audiences. And we use the ratings to help us, either affirm that we're in the right direction or help us and guide us into developing or creating something different, or even improving something that we've already created. And where we don't work in a vacuum, and I think getting out and about and talking to audiences is really important. So we also rely on qualitative audience data as much as we do on those overnights. It also helps us see the shift between linear television, so traditional broadcasting, and our new platforms, which of course ABC iView is our main digital platform. And we need to track where audiences are, if they are moving between linear and digital.
Well, quite often the ABC will start a series, and then after the first episode airs on ABC, all of the subsequent episodes are released on iView. On a commercial channel, that might diminish linear ratings. Is the mandate of the ABC to just allow the audience to access the program in whatever means necessary to the widest possible audience and not care about at all where the eyeballs ultimately come from? I ask that based on what you just said about linear versus iView.
Yeah, it's really important in this incredibly competitive and fragmented world where audiences are only interested in getting great stories and they don't really care where those stories come from. It's one of those issues that all broadcasters face. And I guess we have to strike the right balance between what we're offering on our television channels as much as what we're offering on demand. And so I guess from our perspective right now, there's still huge audiences to just traditional broadcast TV. And there's no doubt we have to look after them. But we are increasingly more focused on ABC iView. And just even in the last sort of 6 or 7 weeks, we've uploaded over 1,000 hours of new content to ABC iView. So we have now this rich catalog of around 4,400 hours of content for our audiences to enjoy. And that's one way of evolving audiences' behavior and where they get their content from the ABC, so that in the future, when linear television is less likely to be available, just because technology will move on, that audiences will have already had a great experience on ABC iView and see that as the primary platform for the ABC. So not everything will binge on iView, not everything will premiere on iView in these first few years or so, but we'll take some calculated risks and base the content premieres and what we do with premieres and binges on ABC iView as a case by case.
You do have a lot of success on Wednesday nights with Hard Quiz, Sean McAuliffe and Charlie Pickering in terms of ratings. Now, if each show was doing, say, 250,000 viewers instead of 500,000 or more, which is what they get now, would they still continue? I mean, I asked that to get a sense of what the ABC charter is, what the audience is doing, and the ratings information all combined in terms of if you would commission them again.
Yeah, it's a good question. And yes, I'm absolutely thrilled that Hard Quiz rates so highly amongst the others, and is a rival to the commercial output. It is really pleasing to see that. But, I guess it's more important for the ABC to attract the largest audiences. And we're there for all Australians. We're not just a niche broadcaster. So ratings are an indication only, I guess. And programs don't live or die based on those ratings. There are all sorts of other aspects that we consider. Is it serving the charter? Is it enjoyed by audiences? Who are those audiences? And is it filling a gap? Something, somebody or other commercial networks or others may not produce that type of show.
Well, I mean, despite all of what we've just said, though, it must be pleasing when you get the ratings in, and something like All People's Home for 4-year-olds or Love on the Spectrum, those type of shows, they perform so strongly. That must be pleasing.
It sure is. Yes, absolutely. And it confirms that we understand the audience and what they need. And I think it also proves that we can get large audiences to these kinds of shows. They're not just niche shows, they're actually appealing and emotionally connecting to Australians in a different way. And it's particularly pleasing because those kinds of shows are rarely, produced by the commercial networks. So it is distinctive, and it is the ABC.
Mentioning Love on the Spectrum, that's a good segue actually to talking about the ABC's diversity and inclusion commissioning guidelines for screen content. For people that have no idea what that is it possible to give a Reader's Digest version of what this is all about?
Unlike my path from high school to television, yes, I will try. Look, I think, it's really important. Diversity and inclusion is really at the heart of everything that we do. And the reason it is because we want to reflect Australians wherever they are and from whatever culture they come from. So these guidelines, diversity inclusion guidelines for screen content, are really about one principle, which is nothing about us without us. So this is really to ensure that productions, which might be about a specific diverse community or subject matter, should include at least one person who is representative of that diversity, whether it's on screen or in the core creative team. So we're encouraging not only ourselves, but our production partners to give greater access, really, and opportunity to underrepresented people and their perspectives, so that we can remain relevant and continue to connect with, audiences wherever they are, whatever gender, whether they're Indigenous Australians, they might come from the coal community, they might be people with a disability, or they might be from the LGBTQI plus community. I think it's really important that we have something for everyone. Although, we can't be all things to all people, we can certainly reflect what people see in their everyday lives.
So moving forward, what on-air look will these guidelines give to programs in the future? I'm guessing, if an ABC drama came out and it includes a character or something, with a disability, that the ABC there would be inclusion in there with the disability group in representation in that drama. Is that how I'm reading that?
Yeah, and I think it's important to say that the diversity and inclusion guidelines shouldn't be seen as an obligation. This is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to enrich our programs, to bring new voices, cultures and perspectives to our audiences. I think it makes us stronger, makes us more creative, makes us more inclusive as an industry. And it, I guess, will mean more shows like First Day coming from the children's department, Stateless from our drama department, and Love on the Spectrum from our factual department. That's where I'm hoping we'll get a bigger, richer collection of those really powerful shows.
I want to speak about ABC arts programming. When I think about the arts type programming in the past, I think of quite niche and broadly speaking, lower rating programs. But you found success through with Finding Archibald. Was that a lesson for the ABC in terms of how arts programming can be presented and that there is an audience out there for arts programming?
There is definitely an audience for the arts. And I guess, a couple of years ago, we could have lost our way a little bit, focusing on the primetime content. With limited resources, you have to prioritize those resources. And I guess we focused a lot on the big dramas and big high-end factual shows and our children's content. And somehow arts got a little lost. But there's no doubt that people want arts content. And as you mentioned, Finding the Archibald with Rachel Griffiths was a huge success. Firestarter was another amazing feature doc. The David Gulpilil story. They're all accessible and easy to understand and easy to watch and easy to be enriched by. And I think audiences have proved that they want those shows. Like any genre, arts actually covers many areas. So, Triple J, classic, jazz and country. There are national music networks. They are constantly using artists and writers and performers and connecting to audiences in the same way that our content does in a range of ways on television. Artworks, for example, is our weekly arts program and is designed to represent and reflect that diversity. And I think, yes, having Rachel Griffiths in presenting that, I mean, not only does she have a passion for art, but people know her and like her and respect her, and she was a great guide to the Archibald Arts works. Hopefully we can continue that. In fact, we've got an upcoming series with Cordia Carvin, who has a passion for books, and she's doing a book series for us.
Oh, awesome. Well, let's look at a few different nights of the week now. Sundays have been fairly successful this year with things like Spicks and Specks, Grand Designs, and dramas such as Jack Irish. So is Sunday nights a broad entertainment start and then Australian drama night?
Yeah, in short, it is. There's definitely an audience for high quality, distinctive Australian drama on Sunday nights. You mentioned a few, Jack Irish, Mystery Road was huge on Sunday night. Stateless did extremely well. Total Control. There's definitely a behavior pattern to audiences wanting good, strong, dramatic stories. In the same way that Wednesday night might be completely opposite, which is, all about comedy and entertainment with Mad as Hell and our, new comedy dramas like Fisk and Aftertaste. And even Superwalk, which is doing extremely well. So there's still a big audience to traditional television, and we found that Sunday night is something that they want to sit back and be nourished by a narrative.
A new Australian drama, though, coming up is called The Newsreader. I think that's going to be an industry observed show for sure. Lots of the industry watching this one. Can you tell me more about it and its premiere date?
Yes, of course. Yes, it does have a connection to our sphere of the world, our industry. It's a new ABC drama set in the crazy world of what we would perceive as a commercial television room. It's the late 80s, so I think we focus on 1986. It stars the incredible Anna Torv, who plays a notoriously difficult star anchor. And Sam Reed, who is playing a very diligent, young, new reporter who's desperate for the big time. And so the series is about them and their relationship and the people around them, the people that they work with and the big personalities that exist in that newsroom. But it also covers, some extraordinary actual news events. So if we can think back to 1986, there was the Challenger explosion. There was all that hype around Halley's Comet. There was the Chernobyl meltdown and a whole range of other things that will be covered in the series. But it's not a documentary. It's a narrative drama. So it's about the personalities more than the news events. So Newsreader will premiere on Sunday, the 15th of August, in that 8:30 drama slot on ABC TV, but it'll also be available on ABC iView.
Before we leave Sunday nights, a quick question. Is Spicks and Specs returning in 2022?
Quick answer, I hope so. It's all subject to the pandemic and whether, the stars are available really to produce. But yes, I would love to bring it back.
We did mention this. You mentioned in the last question about Wednesday nights being a success with Hard Quiz, Sean McAuliffe and Charlie Pickering. But some of those lead out programs have been proven to be big successes too. Like you mentioned, Fisk, which was in a later time slot. You must be pleased with the Wednesday lineup and indeed programs like Fisk.
Yes, absolutely. Wednesday nights are an appointment to view for a lot of people, and Wednesday nights do very, very well for us. It's terrific to have the laugh out loud comedy from Sean McAuliffe in Mad as Hell. There's The Weekly, our news show Win the Week, which has just launched a couple of weeks ago. And that sort of very strong audience connection to those programs has helped us flow on audiences and give them more comedy. And after that, we're into sort of narrative comedy territory. Fisk has done extremely well. I mean, it's a terrific laugh out loud comedy set in the lawyer's office in Melbourne, and has been well received, as has Aftertaste, which we filmed in the Adelaide Hills. And Superwog, which is a completely different demographic, although many people in their 40s and 50s told me that they watch Superwog, even though it's designed for a slightly younger audience. So, I mean, there's no doubt that broadcast television is still alive, and as well as it can be in this really crazy, competitive, fragmented world.
In there, you mentioned Win the Week. I just wanted to ask, do you feel sorry for the team at Win the Week at all in terms of ratings? Because I only ask because on day one, people were going to compare ratings for Hard Quiz. So if Hard Quiz got 650,000 and, Win the Week got 500,000, it's a dip of 150,000. But that's a super high standard, to reach for Hard Quiz.
Yeah, Hard Quiz is a very hard act to follow. Tom Gleeson has this in the palm of his hands. But, I think I'm really proud that we're able to bring something new into the schedule. And Win the Week is a great format. And I would say that, given time, it will grow because it's got some super people behind it with the host, Alex Lee and Craig Rucastle in the background created this format. So yeah, I'm really excited for it, and hope that we can continue to grow that show.
So just sort of, I guess, a technical question with the show. It's off air. It's been replaced by a couple of repeats of Hard Quiz. I gather that's due to the COVID restrictions. It's tentatively titled to come back on the first week of August. Will it be back for the next 4 episodes, or being that they missed 2 episodes, is the series being cut by 2 episodes?
It is incredibly unfortunate that COVID has hit right in the middle of the brand new show, connecting with brand new audiences. So yes, there's no doubt that we will want to bring that back as soon as we can. And we're going to do everything that we can to complete the series run and give them a good shot.
Awesome. Let's go to Thursday nights, and here it is. Let's talk about Q&A, because I guess a lot of people would be expecting some questions about Q&A. At the moment, it feels like the stories consumed online about Q&A are garnering more readers than the viewers of the show itself. The ratings have been down a little. So let's start with the obvious question. Why was Q&A moved from Mondays to Thursdays?
I guess the upshot is that, we are finding that audiences are falling away from about 9:30, and they may be doing all sorts of things, including watching on-demand content at that time. And I think we needed to have a bigger focus on our primetime schedule. And I think Q&A deserved to be in a primetime slot.
So when you do a five-city metro comparison, it has dropped in the ratings, even though it was on at 9:35 and now it's on at 8:30. It is on a lower traffic night, though, which is Thursday, and plays against Sport on 9 and 7. What are you attributing any drop to with the audience for Q&A moving from Mondays to Thursdays?
Change is always tricky, especially in a television schedule. Audiences are a creature of habit, and it does take time to change their behavior. I think the audience numbers have been steadily increasing in recent weeks, which is incredibly encouraging. In fact, I think they've been consistently over 300,000, which is, you know, the same territory that it was getting on 9:30 on a Monday night.
Yeah.
So I think that's significantly up on earlier in the year, and I think it's tracking in the right direction.
Obviously, we've seen this week Hamish Macdonald's decision to leave Q&A. I have to ask, is that purely a coincidence that his absence from the show, he has only done one show since May the 27th, and the lower ratings on Thursday, and him leaving the show at this particular point? Is it just a coincidence he's leaving at this particular time?
Q&A thrives on its audience. So we've been producing the show wherever we can, where we can get audiences into a studio. And unfortunately, Hamish has been in lockdown for a few weeks while the program was being produced out of Melbourne. So that's the legitimate reason why he wasn't on air. He's done a great job fronting, you know, one of the biggest changes with Q&A since its inception. So it's got a new night, a new time slot, new panelists, a new approach to the program, and no live audience from early on in the run. So I think, you know, it's been a big challenge for him. He's a great talent, multi-talented, and I think he's now, you know, taking up a new opportunity elsewhere, and, you know, we truly wish him luck. I guess, you know, it doesn't stop us working with Hamish in the future. We still have a great relationship with him. We still highly regard him, and hopefully he will come back when the opportunity arises to do various things for us.
So moving forward, are we seeing Q&A remain on Thursday nights for the rest of this year?
Yes.
Good, lovely short answer. And and I have to at least try. I'm sure you know this question's coming. Do you want to announce here right now who the new host is of Q&A? Is it Virginia Trioli?
Well, I think in recent weeks we've had some terrific success having a rotating stable of hosts. Virginia being one of them, David Spears, Stan Grant. I think that will continue for the rest of the year. You know, there's so many talented people at the ABC, it makes sense to share their role right now, I think, and let's see what happens next year.
No worries. All right, to Friday nights now, and really just one question. ABC dropped a repeat episode of Vera on in favour of rolling coverage of Prince Philip's death. It was quite astonishing, the backlash and the coverage of Vera. How surprised were you of the backlash?
Well, Vera is a very popular show with our core cohort of ABC audiences. So I guess it wasn't, it was a little bit of a surprise, because I would have thought that they were interested to know more about Prince Philip at the, you know, time of his death. But, you know, that program was a repeat, which made it a little bit more surprising. And, you know, we made sure that it was available on ABC iView, and we also rebroadcast it on ABC TV later. So I guess it comes back to that thing that I said earlier around audiences are creatures of habit and they don't like change. So I think there's, you know, there was also a certain amount of exaggeration about that backlash. You know, we received a few hundred complaints at the time about the interruption, but I think that's a relatively low number.
I can tell you, even though it was a repeat, ones like my Nana, every time they watch Vera, it's a fresh episode to them. and every time. Now, it did seem like a bit of an overreaction at the time, but I have to say, though, holistically, why was it that the coverage was not just reserved for ABC News? I mean, you do have an entire channel for news and breaking coverage of the coronavirus pandemic, floods, fires. You don't normally interrupt ABC Main for that stuff. Why did the ABC not just cover a story like this on ABC News anyway?
I think we felt the death of Prince Philip was a pretty significant event for many Australians. Whether you grew up with the royal family, with the Queen and Prince Philip, or you only know Prince Philip from The Crown, I think, most people know who he is.
Yeah.
And his death, given that he was the Queen's husband, I thought was probably of great interest to our audience. People went on to watch other documentaries on the ABC and other places. So there was clearly an interest for, that special coverage.
Was there a bit of a meeting within ABC about this for the future? Like if there was a death of a royal family member or just some really big major breaking news, where is the balance between airing news on ABC News Channel or interrupting the ABC TV main channel for the future?
I'm not sure that you could be prescriptive about these sorts of things. It's really a case-by-case assessment, based on the importance of the news event. And as you say, we break into main channel or ABC TV around daily COVID-19 updates because, people are really interested. So I think we're just going to have to continue to play it as it comes along.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's finish off our theme nights. I want to talk about Saturday night. ABC used to absolutely be the king of the night. The ratings are considerably down from that previous status. Why do you think this is? Has there been a change in the way you are delivered UK programming now, or have deals expired? You're currently running the Durrells that aired on 7 previously. So what's happened to Saturday nights?
Yeah, I guess audiences fluctuate throughout the year. Typically, our Saturday night audience was incredibly strong, and it tends to be even stronger in the fourth quarter. Of course, that's when football winds down and some of those big finales on the virtual reality shows stop. Sure. So last year's final quarter audience was actually up, I think, about 8% on 2019. Oh. I think it's also a reflection of the fact that we've moved, some of those most popular international shows, like you mentioned, Vera. We also moved Midsummer Murders to Friday nights. Mm. And I think also, and this is important, I think, in the way that we are now attracting audiences from the main television service to ABC iView, that actually audiences on Saturday nights on ABC iView have surged. So minutes viewed are up by about 50% year on year. Right. And this has been driven by some of that, international drama. I think just the point on the Durrells, it's been seen elsewhere and it's also available on iView. So I guess that might explain some of the dip in Saturday nights.
Yeah. New topic now, Olympic Games programming. From the guides that I've seen, it looks like it's just business as usual for the ABC. So I'm guessing no changes to programming over the Olympics.
Oh, no, I think you'll find that we've got plenty to offer. There's a new documentary coming up, which is about the story of Australian skateboarder Poppy Starr-Olsen. She's competing in the Olympics for the first time. That documentary is called Tall Poppy, A Skater's Story. Mm. We've also got sports content on ABC iView, and we've curated a number of documentaries and other types of programs on iView around that theme. I think you'll find that ABC News has produced a series called Road to Tokyo, which is presented by Tracy Holmes. There's a regular on-the-ground news report from Tokyo during the Olympics. Yeah. What else is going on? We've also got Offsiders. They're doing an Olympic specials. And Roy and HG are doing a daily podcast called Dodging Armageddon. And that'll run between the 23rd of July and the 8th of August. And then we'll just play a whole lot of complimentary content in case people don't want to watch the Olympics.
Yeah, I actually was meaning that in a positive ways when I say business as usual, you're not just running like repeats and pulling shows off air over the Olympics. You're actually running full steam ahead. That's what I meant by business as usual. You're actually offering continued new programming. You're not just sticking on repeats and giving up over the Olympics.
Good point. Couldn't have said that better. Thank you.
So this is maybe a Reader's Digest question again, but because there's still a lot to come in 2021 on the main channel. What's still to come?
Well, we talked about the newsreader earlier on. We're also currently producing a show called Barons, which is about the beginnings of big business in the surf industry. It's set in the 1970s and follows a group of surfer dudes from the beach all the way through to the boardroom and the all that entails. So obviously very relaxed dudes on the one hand, and then they have to become these corporate icons on the other hand. So that'll be interesting, Barons. We've also got Troppo, which centers around a duo of disgraced ex-cop and an eccentric ex-criminal. They kind of try and unravel a series of strange deaths in steamy far North Queensland. We've got a wonderful series, which I think will be emotionally connecting. It's called The School That Tried to End Racism. It kind of highlights how the ABC can change the way people see the world and ourselves and each other. It's presented by Mark Fennell, and it's a series that explores a kind of groundbreaking social experiment designed to empower school children to stamp out racial bias.
Wow.
We've also got a new season of Total Control, which I'm extremely excited about. Quick anecdote. We were filming in Canberra a couple of months ago, and we were doing, a press call. And interestingly, the real press ran down the hill to see what they were missing out on. And it turned out, of course, to be dead mailmen. So I thought that was a lot of fun. Audiences will see Rosehaven. This is the 5th and final season of Rosehaven. That starts on Wednesday, the 4th of August.
My absolutely favorite show. I'm glad that got given a plug.
Yep, perfect. Set in Tasmania, which I love seeing that environment. Also, we've got a new season of Frayed coming.
Yep.
And then there's a whole raft of development sitting behind all of that. And hopefully, COVID permitting, we will get into production soon on that stuff for next year.
Still plenty to come. That Rosehaven, I love the show. I'm sad that it's the final season. ABC TV Plus launched at the start of this year. Can you tell me how you think it's going, and perhaps what you think is working and what you maybe learned from?
Yeah, sure. ABC TV Plus, that whole rebrand really gave us an opportunity to broaden out the content offering, to showcase more local content across multiple genres rather than just comedy, although comedy still sits on ABC TV Plus. But now we can also, put in documentary shows, we can highlight arts like artworks and other entertainment programs. It's given a primetime slot really to non-comedy shows, like I mentioned, artworks, but also science, religion, and culture. The broadcast market share for ABC TV Plus is tracking very close to where ABC Comedy is, so I'm very pleased about that. I think ABC TV Plus on ABC iView viewing is also up significantly.
I have to mention one thing that's on ABC TV Plus as part of ABC Kids, and that's Bluey. Now, I'm not even sure I even have a direct question for you, but what an absolute phenomenal success. It's actually crazy. When I look through the ratings performances each day, it's usually somewhere up there with a #1 multi-channel show every night, beating everything that's on shows on channels like 10 Bold, 7 Mate, 9 Go. It's out of this world crazy. I mean, does it still astound you, its broad success?
Bluey is just dear to my heart. And I'm absolutely thrilled. It's the highest rated program in the history of ABC Kids. It's the #1 program ever on ABC iView. I think the second season achieved something like 7.2 million complete audience.
Crazy.
We found that it's the most time-shifted program in the history of Australian television. Tick. I think, 4 out of 5 preschoolers have seen Bluey, and 2/3 of primary schoolers. So, it is a true highlight, and just shows you that the ABC plays on the world stage. It's world-class television that I think children appreciate just as their mums and dads. And even if you're not a parent, you can't help but not appreciate Bluey. So, I've always believed that Australian children, or any children for that matter, need to be treated like real human beings, and they deserve really rich storytelling with great characters and settings that are relevant to them. And Bluey brings all of that. And its proven success around the world is fantastic.
It's quite funny when you say 4 out of 5 kids in that sort of demographic have watched Bluey. You sort of wonder what the other 1 out of 5 are doing.
Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig, of course. Some feedback I see from people is that they think that ABC Me is the kids channel, but there is also ABC Kids, which airs on ABC TV Plus, which is where Bluey is screened. Has there ever been any talk of just having one full dedicated 24-hour kids channel and leave it at that? Or does it have to work like this for a reason?
Yeah, I think you find that primary school age children and high school age children are always looking out. They're aspirational, and they see preschool content more and more as baby stuff that they don't want to connect with. So if you're merging the two, it kind of muddies the water for them. It's what we used to do in old linear television terms, when there was only linear television, where you would start at 3:30 with preschoolers and then gradually get older until the news in the evening. So we're keeping them separate for now, but of course, kids are engaging with content wherever it is, whether it's on ABC iView, on ABC YouTube channels, or on ABC Kids or Me.
I wanted to ask, because we're just getting to a close with this podcast, I wanted to ask about drama. Drama quotas, are being lifted. They're very expensive to produce, and networks the commercial networks, aren't doing much now outside of Home and Away and Neighbours. Now, I know in saying that, I'll get emails from 7 and 9 saying we are still producing drama, but it's just not at the output that it was before, when you had 40 episodes a year of A Country Practice, or Blue Healers, or All Saints, or something like that. The ABC's contribution now must be more important than ever to telling great Australian stories. Jack Irish was excellent. Is that how you see it? Is it even more important now for the ABC to produce this stuff?
Drama content is really important to audiences, and so it's really important to us. It's also really important to the ABC because it's a way of reflecting Australians through great Australian storytelling. It is heartening that we're able to do it. Screen Australia released a report in 2019, 2020 that confirmed or reaffirmed that the ABC is probably the biggest backer of Australian drama. We invested something like $33 million into 14 titles, more than any other network. And that's not to gloat. That's just to say how important it is to the ABC. I think it's probably, going to impact audiences with the scrapping of the quotas. Already we've seen a reduction in children's content on commercial broadcasters. But at least the ABC is the home of distinctive, high-quality Australian content, and it is more important than ever. And we're doing everything that we can to use the resources that we have at hand to increase that, even though our funding is in decline. We have to do it. It's important to the audience. It's important to the charter. It's an important way of helping audiences move from what will be eventually old technology like linear television through to new digital platforms like ABC TV.
I know I'd have to say, though, with children's drama, obviously the commercial channels are sort of dropping that or reducing it significantly, but it is a bit of a backhanded compliment to the ABC as well, because they do know that the ABC produces it. They produce it very well, and they do it obviously without commercials. So it's actually very hard to go up against the ABC to a point, isn't it?
Well, I understand that, but I guess for me, competition is really healthy because it makes you innovative and try things.
Mm.
Things like Hard Quiz and Bluey and First Day happen because we're constantly thinking about audiences, and our audiences of the future. Children are going to grow up, and if you're not catering for them within your own brand architecture, then there is a danger that they won't know who you are when they're young adults, and they'll just go off and find other places to get their content from. So it's as much as about supplying, it's also about connecting to your audience through their lifetime, I guess.
I want to end this podcast by asking you what you are most proud of. From a success point of view, one might point to things like Hard Quiz and Bluey, and I'm sure that is good news for the ABC. But I could also imagine if I worked at the ABC, I would be so proud of things like Love on the Spectrum, Misrepresented, Old People's Homes, and even previous stuff like Revelation with Sarah Ferguson. So what are you most proud of?
That really is the $6 million question. I find a question like that really difficult to answer with a single title, just because I'm incredibly proud of the amazing team that develops and produces our content, whether that's in-house or whether it's external. The Australian independent production community is incredible, innovative and creative, and amazing storytellers. And I think the most important thing for me is that all of the shows that you mentioned have a special connection to Australians. And that's what's amazing. That's what gives me pride. That's what makes me get up every day, is to be able to bring incredible Australian stories to audiences wherever they are and wherever they come from.
Michael Carrington, thank you so much for your time today. Some great shows this year and more to come. Loving, as I mentioned, Misrepresented, and looking forward to the Newsreader and the final season of Rosehaven. Hope to talk again soon, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. It's been terrific.